Welcome, everyone. It's good to see you. Good to have you here today. Like I had said on the Google Classroom, today we're going to be talking about business plans. And, this is kind of something that I've been wanting to do for a while now with basically the arts mentorship program. And, this is giving me an opportunity to begin creating some of the handouts that eventually will be used in the mentorship program. But you guys, as the Conchas y Café participants, I like to always incorporate things about publishing and the creative life of a working artist. And I think it's really important that we discuss planning if that is something, in fact, that you want to do. So rather than starting off with a quote today, we're going to start off just straight into the business plan. Now on Google Classroom, I did upload the handout, and you'll be able to download the handout up until I decided to archive the workshop series. But the handout, presenting it on the screen right now, we're gonna kind of skim through it. I'm not gonna go in full detail in every single section, but I'll stop after each section to make sure you guys are kind of capturing everything. If you have any questions, you can type them in the chat and all of that, or just, ask away. So the handout is actually a modified version of the actual business plan that I wrote when I first started basically formulating what would become DSTL Arts. Business plan is normally something that you create in order to kind of have it as like a guiding document. This is something that you would maybe refer back to a few times, throughout the life of your organization, your business. And it's always good to actually update it too. I actually took classes through the Small Business Development Center in Koreatown to help me actually create the business plan for DSTL Arts. And so the information that I'm showing you is basically the same kind of information that they gave me. Now, the purpose, aside from being your guiding document of a business plan, is to also be able to use this for funding. So this is something that you'll want to consider doing, especially if you're going to start approaching banks or other kinds of funding organizations that require some sort of a written document that says this is what the business is and this is how you plan on basically earning money and being able to pay back any kind of loans that you might end up getting. The cover page normally will have something like your logo, and of course it'll have your mission statement or your vision statement, depending on the kind of organization that you're starting. Because DSTL Arts is a nonprofit, the mission statement is going to be what's mostly emphasized here. There is a difference between a vision statement and a mission statement, which I can get into in a little bit. But the mission of DSTL Arts, if in case you don't know what it is actually this little phrase right here. So DSTL Arts is a nonprofit arts mentorship organization that inspires, teaches, and hires emerging artists from underserved communities. This is something that when you're creating your mission statement or your vision statement, it should basically be what you tell people when you are like meeting them for the very first time. Think the elevator pitch, right? It will normally tell you exactly what the organization is. In this case, it tells you DSTL Arts is a nonprofit, and it tells you through this phrase right here, Arts Mentorship Organization. So that's really the core of all of the programs that DSTL Arts has had over the last 6 years now, or 8 years actually, since DSTL Arts has started. And then it tells you, like what it is that I do and kind of why I want to do it. So, I want to inspire, I want to teach, and I want to be able to hire emerging artists. So the why is inspires, teaches, and hires. And then the who is going to be usually, the population that you want to serve. In the case of a business, this would be probably your your target market, the people that you want to have actually purchase merchandise from you, or hire you for certain kinds of services. Now, a vision statement is something that, like I said, is a little bit different. A vision is, the vision of the organization is something that you normally would not share with the public. It is something that you can share with the public if you want to, but that's really more for you and your staff. That's something that would be, used to sort of motivate you guys to make sure that you're always working towards your mission as a nonprofit, as a business, etc. And then, of course, you'll want to, on the cover page, also include, who it was prepared by and some basic contact information. Now, the table of contents, this is here for you as kind of like a quick reference, so that way you know what goes into a business plan. Every business plan that, when I was taught this, that most banks and other funding kind of organizations look at, they're going to have these very key components to it. So it'll have an executive summary, something that is really focusing on the demographics of the area that you hope to serve, plus the market needs, as they call it. Of course, you're going to have, something that speaks about, the staff, the people that are actually going to be performing the jobs, like the key people. So this would be like supervisors, managers, directors, all of that stuff. The competitive position and target market is kind of like where you examine the other organizations or businesses that are doing similar work that you would be doing, but also how you'll be doing it your own unique way. And that's where then you'll say, this is why you want to fund me, by going with the funding needs and strategies section. The SWOT analysis is kind of like a very brief breakdown that shows that you've thought through some of the challenges and some of the opportunities that exist for you. And then, of course, you'll have the marketing plan. For today's lesson, we'll go over each one of these sections with, just some basic information. And then we'll talk about marketing and branding towards the very end. Now, if you, as part of your business, are thinking, you want to do workshops or that kind of thing, I also included here the basic outlines of the types of things that you'll need to write in a program plan. And using obviously the DSTL Arts programs to help with, sort of giving y'all an example. But these are not really included as part of the handout, but you'll have at least here, right, like the objective of the program, the program eligibility and application criteria, program design, program measures and outcomes, and then evaluation. So these are the basic things that you'll need if that's part of your business strategy, is offering workshops and having things like that. Especially if you're going to be applying to grants. Grant funding basically asks all of these questions right here. Every single grant application that I've ever come across pretty much asks for all of these components. So if you write this as part of your business plan, you'll be pretty much ready to actually start applying for grants and all of that. Now, before I move on, does anybody have any questions or anything that needs answered right now? Anything that popped up while I was talking? Nope. All right.
Nope.
Cool. All right, so let's just get into it then. So going along, you start off with the executive summary. Right, so this section, as you can see here, this section serves as a brief overview of your organization, which includes also your services and your experience in the field. So this right here is going to be something that a bank, or other funding organizations are going to look at, and they're going to say, oh, okay, this is like the big broad brush stroke that explains to me why this business exists, why this organization exists, and what it is that they do. So here you'll see, we'll kind of just skim through this, but I pretty much start off with where Distill Arts is located in the Metro LA area. And then I immediately go into what it is that Distill Arts does, which we offer artist residencies and mentorships in various art disciplines, along with career and academic guidance to emerging artists from historically marginalized communities. So that's kind of a long sentence, but it tells you exactly what Distill Arts does. We do artist residencies and mentorships. We have different art disciplines that we focus on, and we do career and academic guidance for artists from historically marginalized communities. It does go into a little bit more detail there, but kind of, again, gives you that very concrete example of what it is that Distill Arts does. Now, if you were doing this as an individual artist or as a person that's starting a creative services business, you might start off by saying something along the lines of, Business X is a boutique, creative services organization located in the Metro LA area that provides, creative writing services, copy editing, and copywriting for individuals, seeking to. It starts to sound a little bit like a resume, but that's ultimately what this is, right? Now here it does go into a little bit more detail in this first paragraph about, the main program, our flagship program, which was previously called the Arts Mentorship Program. But beginning this year, I'm actually going to rebrand it and call it the Poet Artist Development Program. And so from here, it'll start to talk a little bit more about that program specifically. And then it'll mention that there are other workshops and things that Distill Arts offers. Like I said, you also want to talk about the experience that you have in doing this type of work. So you'll have maybe one short paragraph dedicated to your work experience, and what makes you qualified to actually operate your own business in whatever field it is that you're doing. In my case, because Distill Arts is an arts-based nonprofit, and I've been working in the nonprofit world since I was 18 years old, that's why it has there that I've, been working in this kind of field for the past 20 years, almost 20 years. I also do offer here some more specific information about how people would qualify for the Poet Artist Development Program. In this particular case, that works because it is a nonprofit, but for a for-profit business, you might say, that your particular demographic that you hope to serve will be maybe, people earning a certain amount of income and also working in, the fields of creative services and other kinds of areas. Or maybe you're going to be working, for other business owners, and you're going to be helping them create their social media content or things like that. It's all really going to depend a lot on the type of business and services that you are hoping to establish. But that's more or less what you want to do in this section. Now, again, here, this talks a little bit more about Distill Arts and the ways in which Distill Arts hopes to actually work in the community. But then I do start to also begin sort of putting in the seeds about how I plan on actually generating income through Distill Arts. So I do talk about the Mobile Art Lab here, and then, I think I mentioned somewhere in here that we do plan on being part of other community events and that kind of thing. This next one is going to be the one that probably requires you to do a lot of research before you begin writing your business plan. The community background and market needs is the section where you really talk about the community that you want to serve. And you have to be sort of real about, how much money you want to earn and how much money or income the demographic that you want to serve has. You may want to do like free workshops for people in, say, like South Central. But knowing the demographics of South Central, you have a higher percentage of people that are, low income. And so if you're going to be charging for your workshops, like say $30 to be a part of the workshop, that may not necessarily be accessible to that particular community. But if you're talking about a place like Los Feliz or, the West Side where people are more affluent, that may be where you want to offer those kinds of services. And then, here you would probably mention that part of the money that you would be earning over there would maybe be used to provide free services or that kind of thing to another area. When we're talking about grant funding, especially funding that is, from either the state or local government, you probably will have, a more appealing program grant application, if you talk about using, money that you generate from one area to then help make it more accessible for people in another area. So that's just kind of, again, why you need to really use demographic data to really establish why the community that you want to serve needs your particular services. The census also, because we just recently did one, that information will be updated probably in the next year or two. So, always use more current census data wherever you can. And if you end up doing your own surveys, independent market research is something that you can always do by, using your social media or even, like in-person contact, where you ask people, it's like, hey, what kind of like workshops would you want to have in this community? What kinds of, like graphic design services would you think are necessary for people that live or work in this area? So, those are the kinds of things that you want to think about when you start to write this particular section. Here for DSTL Arts, I did talk about, LA County being one of the cultural capitals of the world. Obviously, we have like Hollywood and all sorts of other, arts-related businesses and people working and living in the area. So in that sense, you're able to say, if you look up the census data, you can find things that show you, how those businesses have grown over the last several years and how there is money to be made in this particular sector. This information is old, but I'm, have this here as an example of, the type of money and the number of jobs that actually exist in LA County in the arts. So you have a lot of independent artists, writers, and performers. There are actually publishers in LA County, graphic designers, and as you can see, sometimes they fluctuate. Right, sometimes the number of people that actually are working changes, but overall the amount of money that is made is pretty high. So if you are hoping to start a business as an artist in LA County, 1 out of every 5 people living in LA County, 1 out of 5 jobs is part of what's called the creative economy. Now, if you're gonna go the like slightly more nonprofit or social enterprise route, where you're doing work that is free or low cost for certain communities, this is also where you want to say that. This is where you want to show that you understand, the population of LA. Here I used some national data. Approximately 55% of Latino youth graduate from high school across the country. Now here in LA, only 66% of the population ages 25 and older can say that they have a high school diploma. Again, those percentages are kind of old now. I do need to update them, but this is at least an example of the kind of market need that you can establish if you're talking about doing workshops that are free or low cost. And this information is going to be information that'll really help you once you start writing grants and try to get like sponsors and funders to hopefully give you money to provide our arts or creative arts services in our communities. Yeah. Here, I also actually added in information about the male versus female population, and the types of jobs that are most common. In LA County, this is still pretty accurate. The most common job for both men and women in LA County is building and grounds maintenance. That's the biggest job. That's the most common job that people have in LA County. And if you think about it, when you have a population that is mostly Latino, or mostly living at a certain level of income level, it kind of makes sense that you would have a lot more people working in the service industry or in buildings and grounds maintenance. Basically, these are your gardeners and maids. So that says a lot too, I think. Now, the next section is the founder, directors, and key staff. In this one, like I said here, like I wrote here, you're going to provide a brief biography that shows, either your experience or your expertise in the field that you hope to serve, right? So if you have a long history of working in the restaurant business, this would be something that you would say here if you're going to open up like a coffee shop or a restaurant of your own, right? You want to prove to your funders, to your banker, that they can trust in that what you're doing to actually do the job. If you're wanting to be a working artist, the fact that you attend workshops, the fact that you are actively looking to publish work, those are things that also say that you have experience and are actively working in the field of the arts. So feel free to use that information in your biography. Now here, as you can see, I included my bio. It is kind of a longer one, but for like the jobs that I still have yet to fill in DSTL Arts, these are the, and some of these are a little bit old, like I said, but these are the basic job descriptions. And you'll want to say, if it's a full-time position and if it's a position that is still yet to be filled, right? So, here, this is your opportunity to say, like, this is where I think I need the support. This is why I need the money. What was that?
Sorry, my kid was asking me something. I thought it was on me. My bad.
No problem. So again, but that section, right? The founders and key staff. Those are the section. That's the section where you basically lay out, how many people you need. And I see a question in the chat from Felicia. She asks if I can explain the nonprofit status versus a for-profit status. There's definitely a difference in that like label in the eyes of the IRS, because ultimately that's what it comes down to, is the IRS. Now, if you're a for-profit business, what that means is that, any money that you make that, is over your basic expenses, like, after you finish paying your staff, after you finish paying for all the supplies that you need and everything to do your job, any extra money that you have left over, you can actually use that money to pay yourself or your directors. And so that's why, like, you'll hear about businesses paying their CEOs these bonuses, these massive bonuses. That's because, the company made so much money at the very end of the year that they're able to pay everybody, some amount, some percentage of the profits.
I'm sure I can think a little bit too,
Yeah.
just because of background or whatever. Like if you're thinking of nonprofit in the sense of right? Because there's paid programs that are like this, like I'm sure master classes, those are for profit, right? If there was a writing one, so you're paying up front for that, like we said, to pay those things, so you're making money, right? For teachers. Then you have a product, so you probably sell your books, you sell your curriculum, so you're making money on top of money on top of money. And then with nonprofit, Luis isn't selling any like tangible product or any like degree or anything like that. We are learning that there's not this thing where you can sell to us and say, hey, after the class, give me X amount of dollars and you're going to be a certified whatever. You know what I mean? Like, so the intentionality behind it is even different.
That's part of it, yeah. That is part of it, but there's even that actually is not necessarily true with all nonprofits.
Yeah.
And I can explain that, but I did see that Angie raised her hand. Angie, did you have a question or a comment?
Actually, I think my phone just cut off, and I really didn't understand if you guys got to the nonprofit part of the explanation yet.
Yeah, so I haven't gotten to that part yet, but basically, a for-profit, like I said, is a business that can take whatever extra money they make at the end of their fiscal year and then turn around and give bonuses. They are not obligated to give the money back to the community or anything like that. It's totally their choice. Now, the nonprofit or the not-for-profit status, in the eyes of the IRS, there's different types of nonprofits. There's the 501c3, which is what DSTL Arts is. And even in that, there's like subcategories of the 501c3. There's also the 501c4. And then there's subcategories underneath that. Now, what makes a nonprofit is the fact that any profits that are made in the process of offering whatever service the nonprofit provides, all of those profits don't go to one single person or to the board of directors. Instead, that money, that extra money, that surplus, gets basically used again to provide the same services for the community. You can pay, like, say, a Christmas bonus. You can pay, small bonuses that are not like substantial, but the main idea is that no one single person can keep all of the profits from the business, from the nonprofit. Now, nonprofits can operate as businesses, though. So, like, if I wanted to, DSTL Arts could charge you for this service. I could technically charge you for these workshops, and I could use that money to cover the expenses, and I could use it to pay for staff, and I could use it to pay for everything that I need in order to keep DSTL Arts going. The thing about charging for services, though, is that at some point the IRS is going to say, hey, you have to pay taxes on that. And so, all the chapbooks and zines that DSTL Arts sells, I still pay taxes on that. I pay sales tax and I pay a use tax. I also have to pay the city of LA a sales tax, which is in order for me to keep our business license active. Then there's also things like payroll taxes. So I still have to pay, like Social Security, Medicare, the unemployment taxes to the state and also to the IRS. Us as a nonprofit, that does not change. It's the same exact thing for a for-profit business.
That's so important, like you said, that your business plan is like a resume, because you do need funders, because the nonprofit's not doing those things, they still have to get paid by somebody, usually that they deem. So it's so important, like when you think of like your business plan, how it serves as your resume, because that should determine how much money you're gonna need, not to make, but to sustain yourself, to pay all of those things, and to pay yourself, because it is your time. There's wrong with that? You know what I mean? So
Right.
it's really important, like the vision statement and understanding how to collect that data and all that stuff, and really being intentional about what you want to do and how you're going to do it matters so much.
Exactly.
Because there's a lot of money out there to get, but they're going to go back to this to see how much should they and why should they. Because there's also a lot of programs that need help to pay all of those expenses. A way to make the money and pay themselves, which is fair. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly.
But I work for a bank and do some stuff like that. That's just my professional and personal opinion.
Yeah, and it's very true though. You know, this business plan, if you write a business plan, it really is going to be a tool that you can use to get funding, to get support from the community. And it's going to be, like I said before, you know, sort of like a guiding document. This is going to be the thing that you'll probably come back to every now and then to see, you know, how am I doing? Am I, you know, being successful as a business owner, or am I, you know, needing to change things around? Another thing too about the nonprofit status is that nonprofits are considered, you know, community-based or community-focused organizations. They can be churches, they can be, you know, literary organizations, they can be arts or social service organizations. And you can even be like, say, a fraternity or a sorority, and those would also be nonprofits. You know, like a Friends of the Library is a nonprofit. And those are different types of nonprofits. Do you have a question, Angie?
Yeah, earlier when we started talking about the taxes, you know how you said that word, what are we considered again? We're nonprofit tax rate. What's the tax rate we were in?
We're a 501c3 nonprofit.
Okay. Is there any way, like, or do you have like a breakdown of the different types of tax rates that we could do, things like that? You know what I mean?
Well, we pay the same kinds of taxes as any other business. So in terms of like sales tax, we pay the same sales tax. Payroll wise, you know, I pay the same into Social Security and everything as any other business does.
Gotcha.
The main difference though is that as a nonprofit, we are able to say to an individual or to another business, hey, if you donate to us, if you give us money, or if you give us services, you actually get a tax break. You have a reduction in how much taxes you have to pay at the end of the year. And so that's where, you know, us as a nonprofit and having that status as a nonprofit really benefits us, because we're able to collect donations and we're able to you know, continue to provide the service that we provide.
Gotcha.
Yeah. That's why a lot of times too, you'll see that there are businesses like Best Buy that has their own foundation, and they give money to their foundation. So whatever that big bonus that they might give to, you know, their CEOs, they'll give them the bonus, but they'll, you know, save a part of that profit and then send it off to their foundation. So they can then say, hey, you know, we're giving back to the community, and, you know, we're being socially responsive. So, yeah, good questions though. I'm glad you guys are asking them. All right, so going back to the handout here. Now, like I said, you know, this section that we just finished, you know, you'll give, like I said, a brief biography that says, you know, why you're qualified to do the work that you're hoping to do. And then if you need it, if you have staff that you still want to hire, that's where you put in a short job description. Now, in this next section, the competitive position and target market, again, this right here is going to be a lot of the information that you found when you were researching your demographics, right? So, you know, when you were looking at the community that you want to serve, that would be your target market. Those are the people that will actually pay you for your services, or will buy your merchandise, or will buy your books. And, you know, competitive position is kind of like what it sounds like. This is where you actually talk about your competitors, and you say, you know, why you are different from your competitors and why your business will actually do well in comparison to other people. Now, here for Distill Arts being a nonprofit, we still have competitors. We still have other organizations, and I listed them here in this paragraph. Being in LA, there's a lot of nonprofits that do very similar work, like Inner City Arts or Las Fotos Project. Even museums, they can be considered a competitor because they're a nonprofit, and they can also do arts workshops and that kind of thing. But what makes Distill Arts different is the approach that we take to providing mentorships, and the approach that Distill Arts takes in, publishing people and, teaching workshops. All of those things are the things that make us very unique and special. And so that's really what I try to highlight in this section. The same goes for you. If you're going to be talking about your business and you're, say, like a candle maker, right? If you're in, like, say, the West Side, there's a lot of people in Venice that I'm assuming that have, candle making businesses. But aside from making candles, maybe you also make, I don't know, like little wax figurines, or you also are doing like Reiki or yoga, workshops or things like that. So your business is going to be different from, say, what they're doing. Also, if you're going to talk about your target market being, say, on the East Side, right? And you're located on the East Side, that's a very different market. You might be doing more candles that are made out of sage, that have the sage scent, or that have, branding that is specific to a particular group, like, the Chicano Latinx groups. Or you might do something that is more like holistic or, indigenous, which would probably have a better market on the east side of LA versus the west side of LA. And that's just based on the demographics that's based on the people that live in those communities. And so that's what you're really going to highlight here. Again, Distill Arts is different because we're a nonprofit, but the ideas are actually the same thing. Here I talk about us, having partnerships with like the libraries, and, potentially working in the future with some of our competitors even. It's very possible that we could at some point have, a partnership that is beneficial to both organizations. Also, here you'll talk about like, who are the people that are going to be your donors, right? If you're kind of setting up your business as like, crowd-funded business, if you have a Patreon page, right, and you have people that actually are paying you every month for, some sort of special behind-the-scenes look, those people might be living in a different area than the area that you're hoping to, ultimately offer your workshops in or something like that. So you can acknowledge that here. Your sponsors and your donors might live in one section of the city, whereas your people that are actually buying your services or buying or attending your workshops, live in another one. Here, with Distill Arts, and if you're going to be doing workshops that are free or low cost, you'll talk about, why the community that you hope to serve also, needs your services too. That's where, again, that demographic information, if you know the income level of a certain community, if you know even like the racial and ethnic makeup of a certain community, you can use that information here to talk about, why the community really needs your services, and why you should get the grant that you're hoping to apply for, or why you should, be funded by or sponsored by another company. So that's some of the information that you'll see written in this particular example. And then here you'll want to talk about too, so at least begin sort of laying the seeds of how you hope to generate some of the money. So, the sales of the books and merchandise that are created through the Distill Arts programs, some of that money does go back to helping cover the cost of materials for these programs. There's a lot of things that you don't see that I actually have to pay for, like, the subscription to Adobe's Creative Cloud, so that I have access to InDesign and Illustrator and Photoshop, and all of the other graphic design software. Like, those are things that you may not see, but you do get to see the final product, which is the books and chapbooks and the zines. So like, all of those things, you want to make sure that you account for them, and you start saying, this is how we make the money to pay for them. You'll have a website, you'll have, the ability to go to different events in the future. There's all sorts of different ways that you can market your work, whether that be through Twitter, Facebook, newsletter. Instagram has the ability to sell through Instagram now too. So there's a lot of different ways in which you can start saying, hey, my target market isn't just here in LA, but it's also actually worldwide, because the internet connects us, and this is how I hope to get my work out there using the internet and also in person and web-based interactions. Does anybody have any questions right now before I move on? I'll talk a little bit more about marketing in a moment, but all right, looking good so far. Now the next one is funding needs and strategies. All right, so this section is exactly what it sounds like. This is where you start talking about, how much money you actually need to sustain your business. And also, this is where you start to say, hey, I'm applying for a loan, and this is how much money I need, and this is what I'm hoping to use it for. Once you've been established for a while, you might say, this is how much money we're able to generate right now, and this is how much money we'll be able to generate in the future if you give us this small business loan, which will pay for more machinery or equipment that'll help us, further our mission. So here you have an example of DSTL Arts. If I had all of the money that I needed to actually operate DSTL Arts, it would be this amount right here. This is how much money I would actually need every year, $491,831. If I was to have a full staff, and having a full office space and all of the materials are covered and everything. That's the actual amount of money that would need to be generated by DSTL Arts to be sustainable. And here I'm very honest with my funders, right? Currently, this is how much money we've been averaging over the past 2.5-3 years now, is $173,000. That's our average, right? And that money is what's used to basically cover everything that you could think of, from our insurance, the supplies, the shipping, the printing of all the different books and zines and things like that, and the little bit of money that I'm actually able to pay myself. And, all of the money that I pay to our staff, that actually helps me now. The editors in chief, our art directors for the zines, artistic and art block, program assistant, and then all the teaching artists that I've been able to hire over the last few years. So, all of that money basically is spent even before I get it. So, I'm basically, if I were to use that in a grant, I would say, this is what we've been able to do up to this point, and with your support, we can get to impact even more people, right? Now, if you're going to be requesting money, especially if you're requesting a small business loan, you're going to need to itemize, and you're going to have to show them exactly how you plan on using the money and how you plan on actually making the money back, so that you can pay the loan off and also show that you are running a sustainable business. So here I give an example of a little table that you might consider using when you're requesting a loan to actually start a business. So if you're going to actually buy land, you would use this section. If you're going to buy a building, leasehold improvements would be improvements to the building itself. Or if you're going to rent a space, this is how much money you would want to dedicate to upgrading it and making it look good for your business. Equipment costs, things like computers, printer, copier, all of those things go there. Furniture and fixtures, obviously, furniture like desks and chairs and things like that. If you're going to be running a mobile business, then you probably would need to buy the car, the vehicle that you're going to be used, and then other fixed assets. These are things that you wouldn't basically have depreciate over time. These are things that you would hold on to for a long time, up until probably you can't use it anymore. And then if it's going to take several months, for example, to actually have your staff help you with, say, the build out, pre-opening salaries and wages, you want to cover that, right? You want to pay people to be there to actually put stuff on the walls and, to pay yourself and all of that. Prepaid insurance premiums. Insurance is very important. Doesn't matter what type of business you're going to be operating. You need to definitely consider that you'll have to have insurance as a business owner. Any kind of inventory. This could even be like workshop supplies and things like that that you plan on giving away or using. If you're going to pay a lawyer or an accountant to help you keep track of everything and to look at contracts, you need to consider that. If you have a deposit, that you need to pay for rents and for utilities, obviously supplies, and then advertising and promotions, any kind of special licenses. And then here you would just sort of any other startup costs that you might have. And then working capital. So this would be cash on hand. This is like extra money that you would need if in case, you have to, have like an emergency contractor come in and build something for you or something like that. And then of course, even though you'll have something kind of like this in your typical business plan, again, like I said, you have to itemize, right? So you want to show, what are the kinds of things that you would be expecting to buy. So here I gave an example of some of the kinds of things that you might need depending on the sort of creative business that you're hoping to start. So if you're a graphic designer, or if you know that you need the graphic design equipment and you know that you have a small staff that's working with you, these are some of the things that you might need. Same if you're going to be a photographer or a vlogger or a podcast creator. These are some of the things that you might need if you're going to be doing those things. And then these are the most basic, like office type equipment things that you'll probably need too. In that same section, like I said, you're going to also talk about, how you're planning on making money. And so after you talk about how much money you need, you're going to then talk about how you're going to invest it and then, earn it back so you can pay back that loan. So here are some examples that I could think of ways for you to be able to make money, as a way to pay back any kind of loans and that kind of thing. So these are just sort of examples, estimates of how much money is possible that you can make, whether that be, subletting your art space. If you are renting a studio and you have a big enough studio or office that you're able to share with someone, you could split the cost that way. You can always earn a lot more if it's a bigger space and if you want to do events. And if you're interested in actually providing event planning and that kind of thing, you can make a whole lot more than just what I put here. This one's probably the most common way artists actually make money. They'll do creative services for hire. So this is where you are either actually working for someone or they hire you for a contracted time, and you create something for them. whether that be like video or, doing copy editing, copywriting, that kind of thing is always a very, very stable kind of way of making money as a working artist. And then doing workshops or e-courses, anything that's online nowadays can also be monetized. So, you can make money that way by teaching. And then, of course, this right here. So you have development, which is grants. That's another fancy way of talking about grant writing and receiving grants and donations. Then there's, of course, merchandise. And so depending on, what type of business you're doing, what kind of art you're doing, you could do like prints and posters, and you can do tote bags and t-shirts and all kinds of things like that. You can also do individual donations. Like I said before, you can do Kickstarter, you can do Patreon. There's a lot of different types of online platforms that are available to receive donations, even if you're not a nonprofit. You can also do like annual art shows and auctions and things like that. You can host an open mic every month and you can charge for it. You can also do, a quarterly art show and, have like, do that in partnership with a nonprofit so that you earn money and then you can donate a portion of it. And then, of course, grants. There's always grant writing. Any questions? I see Tina's asking if I'm still hiring. Not at the moment, not hiring exactly, but those of you that are in the mentorship program, you get your royalties for any book sales and things like that. But yeah, any other questions about anything that I covered right now? No? All right.
My cover just that. What's the? And I don't know if I'm supposed to know this or not. But what is the mentorship program? I'm sure you've told me. I just was on the right way. Or can I go to the website and see what it is? Yeah,
on the website you can read about it on the website. But the mentorship program has always been a program where I work with emerging artists and I help them basically create a manuscript and then teach them some of these basic skills that we've been covering. So like budgeting, how to create a business plan, how to create a website, how to think about themselves as a brand and start marketing, that kind of thing. So, yeah. We'll continue on. So the SWOT analysis, this section, SWOT, S-W-O-T, basically is like a way for you to, in bullet points, talk about what your strengths are. That's the S in SWOT. What your weaknesses are. That's the W. The opportunities. That's the O, and then the threats. Right? So it sounds kind of ominous, right? But ultimately, when you start thinking about your business, there's going to be things that make you very capable of doing your business. There's going to be a lot of opportunities that you have to be successful. Excuse me, to be successful. And, those are the kinds of things that you would list here. So your strengths are going to be the things that make you different, things that make your business something that would probably, have a good following, a strong following. The weaknesses would be things that you can work on to make it even better, right? So some of those things are out of your control, like in my case, grants are competitive and there's very few grants out there for nonprofits in general. But that doesn't mean that, I don't have a good program, right? The opportunities that Distill Arts have are what make Distill Arts unique, right? Like having our mobile art lab and being able to go to different areas of the city and the county to provide workshops. That's something that, not every other business has or nonprofit. For you as a working artist, it would be maybe your particular way of doing something, your style, right? That would be an opportunity, especially if you have connections within a certain kind of community that really would like your style. The threats, a lot of times threats to your business would be things that are also the weaknesses, right? So again, you see here, limited and competitive grant-based funding opportunities. All right, that's the same thing as a weakness. But, as long as you're aware and you're showing that you're aware of the things that could be challenging, you can then think about, well, how do I make my business something that is pandemic proof or that is recession proof? What are the strategies that you can use to actually ultimately preserve yourself and your livelihood? So this section is really just you sort of brainstorming at first. And then after that, once you're done brainstorming, you can start to sort of fill out these categories and show to your funder that, hey, there's definitely a lot more strengths and opportunities for my business to be successful than there are weaknesses and threats. Now here, the marketing plan, this is probably one of the biggest things that I get asked about when we're talking about, how do you start creating a career in the arts? There's a lot of different things that I've done, that I've tried in the past to make Distill Arts stand out. But ultimately, a marketing plan, when you write it out, you'll be able to start sort of making connections. And this is where you talk about how you're going to promote your business across everything, right? Every opportunity that you have to get your brand, to establish your brand, and to maintain the integrity of your brand, that's a marketing opportunity, right? So like here in this section, we're not going to read it all the way through, but in this section, I talk about, Distill Arts creating merchandise, right? So all of the zines that we've done in the past, when they were handmade, and the fact that even at this point, I still have people making handmade mini zines, that's something unique, that's something special. Stickers. The fact that Distill Arts has stickers now, and that Distill Arts has a handmade mini zine maker pack that is available on our website. Like all of these little things, are very special, custom, limited edition types of things. But then there's also the chapbooks and the zines that I talk about. Going to zine fests and going to the LA Times Festival of Books. Those are marketing opportunities. And then, of course, you have, all the social media. So, I use our social media to talk about, the mission statement of Distill Arts. I use it to share, when we have events and when we have workshops coming up. With the help of Jeremy and Tanya, they're helping promote Artistic and Art Block Zine, and our calls for submission. And, there's a lot of different ways in which we're able to the public, show them that Distill Arts is a certain kind of organization. The same would go for you as a business owner, right? Once you kind of establish your brand, once you have sort of like the identity, the visual identity of your business already set up, then you're going to want to be very consistent with how you present it to the public. And, there's a lot of tools out there. I use MailChimp, for example, as the way for us to send out newsletters in people's inboxes. So that's an additional way in which Distill Arts is able to have contact with people. We do have our blogs, our blog posts on our website that people can go check out and see, the artwork that is produced. If part of your business is writing or, photography or, even doing illustrations, and you have a blog where you can present some of it, that could also be like a kind of portfolio where you can then show other businesses and people that might be interested in your work, samples of the type of work that you do. Everything could have multiple purposes, right? Going to a zine fest isn't just about selling. It's also about telling people about the programs if you're going to a zine fest and you're selling your zine, it's also about getting people to know you and your voice and your brand. And the interactions that they have with you are going to be what make them a return customer in the future. This is also where you might think about including things like memberships that you pay for. In the case of DSTL Arts, last week we talked about the community of literary magazines and presses. Right? DSTL Arts pays the membership fee to be a part of that group, so that way other small presses and people that are interested in publishing their work can find out about DSTL Arts, and they can find out about, you know, all the different programs that I provide, and also potentially submit their work to art block zine or artistic zine, which is why we also have a subscription to Submittable, which Submittable is a way for me to get people's submissions and also to get donations and subscriptions to our zines. So every single thing that DSTL Arts has done over the past several years, it has been because it serves multiple things, right? It can do multiple things for us. And all the time, I'm always trying to maintain the brand of DSTL Arts, right? The look of everything is very specific. And for that, I use a tool that I've talked about before that I want to make sure that all of you are aware of and that I would actually recommend you use. So now, to sort of show you what I mean by the overall image and the branding of DSTL Arts, I'm sure all of you have seen this little badge right here, right? The little pencil and the brush. You know, those colors, I chose those colors specifically because they're very inviting colors. And orange is actually considered to be the color of creativity in certain cultures. And so, you know, to have a color that contrasts with it, this green color, that sort of turquoise color, you know, it felt like it was a really good color to have as a contrasting color. But, you know, again, it's about being inviting. And the image itself, that little badge, you know, it says everything that DSTL Arts does. Art, right? Writing and art. And, you know, even the fonts that I chose on our website, you know, these are very specific fonts to make it look modern, to make it look like something that is established, but also, you know, like new and fresh and all of that, right? If you look at the way that the website is set up, you know, the colors, they all are the same. You know, the green is used over and over again. The orange is used over and over again. You know, there's the same language that's used across everything that I've created for us. You know, everything is about mentorship, right, and guidance and career guidance and building skills. You know, the mission of DSTL Arts is repeated in multiple areas of the website, right? And if you look at, you know, even the stuff that I post on our social media accounts, you know, when I post it, I try to kind of maintain the same voice and the same style of writing. It is a little bit different in, you know, like art block and artistic. If you go to the website, for example, you'll see, right, art block zine. The zine looks different from some of the other stuff that DSTL Arts produces. This is the masthead. Right, this is the actual logo for art block, and you know, it still says what it is, but it fits within kind of the larger identity of DSTL Arts. Right. See, here's an example of the flyers that I had created a while back for the zine making workshops. You know, the colors, they're the same. They're the DSTL Arts colors. You know, and that sort of plays off a little bit with what art block does, in that, you know, the green and the red sort of go together. But overall, you know, everything is about maintaining a particular image, right? With artistic zine, because the zine itself is for a particular group, you know, the masthead of the zine has changed and is now this one. It's a little bit more modern, and I think it's a little bit more inviting. And, you know, with Tanya's feedback on it, you know, I think that this is a very good way of making people with autism feel unique and feel like they're a part of our community too. If you notice, right, the zine, the letters, the font for zine here, that's actually the same as for art block. So if you go back over to art block, well, actually it's not, never mind, I take that back. Guess I had changed it at one point. But either way, you know, each particular zine has its own little badge, right, that matches. So like the art block badge, this little badge right here, the colors are different on the zine itself. It's red and black, whereas the one for artistic, you can kind of see it right here. It has the same sort of rainbow color on the background, and then the silver on the outside. So, you know, brand consistency is really, really important once you start looking at it from like a branding point of view. You want it to always be very consistent. Now, the tool that I had mentioned before, and I almost forgot that you can view it, or you can get it through our website. If you go here to our tab for shop, and you go to Adobe Creative Cloud Deals, here you can actually get you know, the subscriptions for Adobe's software, and you would be able to support Distill Arts at the same time. So if you tap on that, you'll see this right here, and then you click on there, and it'll take you to this right here, right? So you get a discount, and you're able to support Distill Arts to, you know, help us basically cover some of the costs of running our programs. But this particular app.
Are you guys on the Amazon? Are you on the Amazon that I type you in?
Not on Amazon, but that's through the through our website. Right? So if you go to distillarts.org, you go to shop, and then that little the little menu will pop out, and that'll take you to where you can get all of these Adobe subscriptions.
Amazon, there's like this thing where every time you use it, it gives to a nonprofit your choice.
Oh, yeah, that's another way that you can support Distill Arts too. Yeah.
Right now, I have it for my kids' school. They're even going to school.
Yeah.
So find you there for DSTL.
Yeah. So if you see the screen right here, right? If you go to, I think it's under Donate.
Wait, did you seal it?
What's that?
Sorry.
Oh. So if you go under Donate on the Distill Arts website, go to Donate. Just tap on Donate or click on Donate. Here you see how you can donate directly, but if you keep scrolling down, this gives you the information for you to actually register with Amazon with Smile, right? So Amazon Smile is what Jessica's talking about. And every time that you purchase something on Amazon, as long as you're on smile.amazon.com and you have set up Distill Arts as the nonprofit that you want to support, Distill Arts gets a donation from Amazon. So that's one way that you can help us out. And then there's also these other ones too. This one called Giving Assistant, which basically it, you know, rounds up your change, I think, if I remember right. And it gets donated, right? So every time that you shop, a percentage of your cash back gets donated to Distill Arts. So yeah, there's different ways in which you can support Distill Arts. But back to this one. So if you click on Shop, and then go to Adobe Creative Cloud Deals. If you click on either the full Creative Cloud, you can get like Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, and all of the Adobe apps with a small discount for your first year subscription, and then you are able to use the Distill Arts gets a percentage. Same with Adobe Spark if you only want to use that one app, and then same here for Premiere Rush if you only want to use that one app. This one is for editing videos and stuff like that. Adobe Spark is the one for like creating social media graphics. You can use this to create web pages and other kinds of like little videos and things like that too. So again, you just click on that. It'll take you to this little banner. You click on it, which then it takes you to the other to their official website. So yeah, I think you saw Gustavo on there. And thank you, Felicia. The reason why I chose those colors for DSTL Arts branding and the design is because it is meant to be soothing and inviting, and I want people to feel like they can be a part of DSTL Arts too. Now, if you end up actually getting your subscription for Adobe Spark, or even if you decide that you're not going to pay for the subscription, this is a free service, right? This is very similar to Canva. And once you log in and register, you get up to 2 gigabytes free if you do the free version. Now, if you do the paid version, you are able to do a lot more. Like you get some custom branding and stuff like that you're able to do. Now, if we go here, and I'm going to show you guys especially for Tanya and Jeremy and Angie, who are on the call with us, they are part of the people that helped me actually promote DSTL Arts. And so I set this up, when I set it up, with all the major colors that DSTL Arts uses. So our logo is here, the little badge is there as well. These are the colors that every single social media graphic and video that is created using Adobe Spark uses. So these things are already automatically there. There's no need to change them. Every time a branded thing is created, it's all automatically going to be there. The same with the fonts, right? So these are the fonts that I use for everything that is related to DSTL Arts. It's this one called Adele Regular and this one called Avenir. Avenir is the one that actually you'll see the most in like our Conchas y Café zines. And also the one that you'll see in our Art Block zine too. These are fonts that I chose because, again, there's a style, there's a look that I want. Adele is a font that makes things feel a little bit more like established, makes it feel inviting and warm. Whereas Avenir is a font that I chose because I want it to be kind of modern, right? I want things to look a particular way. And that's also reflected in our main logo here, right? This one, it's a different font, if I remember right, from Adele, but it's very, very similar. And Arts, this part right here, again, it's not exactly the same as Avenir, but it's very, very similar. And so that's why these fonts try to match up with our main logo. And then if you go into our projects section here, you'll see that the stuff that I create for DSTL Arts, a lot of it has very similar colors, right? And, the colors and all of the imagery, it's all meant to actually, make things look consistent. It looks like it's taking a little bit here. There we go. All right. So with what this does for you, oh, and I forgot to change that one. So see, here's what you can do, right? For example, here with this, because everything is already here, you're able to just simply find the logo that you want, right? And you just drop it in place. This is taking a while. All right, but anyways, I'll see, there it is. So this one can be deleted, and this one replaces it, right? And so the web version of this can be kind of glitchy a little bit. I don't really care for the web version all that much, but you can use this same app on your phone. You can do it on a tablet, all of that. and you'll have the ability to create some cool graphics that match your brand. And if you go over here to like templates, you'll see there's other templates that are created by Adobe Spark too. And you're able to then, create things on the go, on the fly. So, these are all different ways in which, DSTL Arts manages our brand. I have these little folders here that have pre-made flyers and templates that our staff are able to use. Anybody can just go in there and just update the things that need to be updated. There's really no need to create brand new things for my staff. And if you're going to create something new for yourself, if you're using Adobe Spark, you just really have everything pre-sized for you, right? You can do Instagram stories, you can do square Instagram posts, or you can do the horizontal ones that actually fit on Instagram. You can create specific Facebook style posts. If you're going to do other things like web pages, see, you can do a web page here, and this gives you templates for growing your business and for all sorts of other kinds of branding related things. See, you can do an info page for an event. If you're going to do videos, it even has templates here for you to do different types of videos. So this app right here is a spectacular app. I really do recommend it, especially if you want to manage your own brand. Or if you're planning on managing multiple brands, because that's what some creative people do too. I know a couple of writers that also are social media managers for other brands, and they use apps like this to help them manage all of the materials that they need for different kinds of companies. So I covered a lot. You see in the chat, those two are to-do projects, right? If Sanfanita, if you're talking about the stuff that is on Adobe Spark, then yeah, those would be things that are there for my staff to do. And do I teach this? I do teach this. These are the kinds of things that I actually try to teach through the Arts Mentorship Program, which, like I said, is being rebranded this year to be called now the Poet Artist Development Program. You guys that are in Conchas y Café are the ones that are actually kind of getting the sneak peek on some of the things that I'll be teaching more of in the future. Yeah. So yeah, Adobe and Canva, they're two separate companies. Canva is very similar to Adobe Spark. Adobe Spark is free, and so is Canva up to a certain point. There are benefits to paying the subscription, which isn't very expensive if you ask me, if you're going to be doing this a lot. So, yeah. Does anybody else have any last questions or things they need clarifying? Didn't want to go over our time too much. Hopefully for Tanya and Jeremy, you guys saw some of the reasons why I have things the way they are. By the way, if in case, cool, I'm glad that you thought it was informative. Still processing, cool. For Jeremy and Tanya, now if you guys are gonna be creating new things, if you go here to branded, under Adobe Spark, right? If you go to branded, or if you go to create something, like let's say, there we go, took a minute, right? So if you go to create something that's branded, you have here, right, all of the ones that are already set up, right? So you can do, like, say, let's find here you go, like a quote, right? So you go to that one, and it's already going to pre-populate for you the DSTL Arts logo and all of the colors that correspond to DSTL Arts. Now, if you're going to change the design, right, like if you go to color, here you can choose the other colors, right? And then once you start to like shuffle them, it'll eventually show you different color combinations. So that way, it always stays on brand. You never have a need for changing anything, really. It automates it all for you. See, there's the art block red. In the case of artistic, you just simply use the other colors. I'm sorry, what was that?
I said, well, the only thing technically would be changing is the information.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So then you just, start playing around here, right? The fonts are already there. The header font, here's the body font. You can always play with these different combinations. And that's one of the benefits of having a branded or the paid version of Adobe Spark, is that these little templates, like if you have your own logo that you've created already, you just upload it on here. If you have a certain type of look that you want to go for, it's already all pre-set up for you. So there isn't much need to be able to change things, right? You're not starting from scratch every time. So, yeah.
That's pretty useful. I didn't know we had that say.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you guys have that tool available to you to help save you time and to, basically stay consistent with our branding. And in the future, for the rest of you, if you're starting your own business, this is going to be a really, really useful tool that I highly recommend. So, I know I covered a lot. Obviously, there's more than likely going to be questions that you might have in the future. Remember, if you're in the Conchas y Café program, you can always use, at least right now, Google Classroom as a way to ask your questions. This session is recorded, and it will be up on YouTube in the next couple of days. And yeah, I'm definitely available to you as a resource if you want to start your own business. If you have questions, I'm more than happy to direct you to people that might know more than me too, because some of the stuff that I'm teaching you now, it could be probably done even better than I've done it before. So, but again, I'm always happy to give you feedback, to give you guidance where I can, and make recommendations. So. Yes, Jess, you can give everybody a high five. Yeah, and and I think that it's really important that we have a lot more women-led businesses, especially women of color. We're all underrepresented as entrepreneurs, and so it's really important that I think that y'all continue to be doing what's best for you, right? To be business owners. So, Sampanita, I saw you raised your hand. Did you have a question? Or was that just like a high five?
That was a high five.
Ah, yeah, that's what I figured. Cool. So high fives to everybody. Yeah, thank you for sitting through this. It was a lot of information, like I said, I understand, but, it is recorded. Y'all can always revisit it. Any questions, just ask them on Google Classroom for everyone else to see. I'm sure everybody else would benefit from knowing the answer to. And with that said, we'll call it a night. Next week, I'll still have a meeting for us, a little session where we kind of wrap up the last of this Conchas y Café series before we start the new one. So, yeah. that'll be it for today. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.